circus that was scheduled to come to town. That's the way they made their living, going from different towns to do the advertising, put out flyers. The circus has asked that we not release their name at this point. Some due diligence on people's part, you would likely easily find the name of the circus that's scheduled to visit Bloomington. However, we won't be able to confirm that name at this point. They were contracted employees rather than direct employees of the circus, so that's the reason for that. During the investigation, detectives obtained a search warrant to the apartment or the motel room where they were staying. It's a motel set up for long-time residents rather than just overnight. In the residence, they found restraints in the form of wrist and ankle restraints, chains, and a dog training collar, a shock collar. Examination of mobile phones found on the possessions of these persons found photographs and film footage or video footage of this child under restraint. The other children seemed to be in relatively good health, but indications seem to be that this young man, Eduardo, lived a very sad life, a lot of times under restraint, and his life gradually diminished after repeated acts of abuse by his father with the not full knowledge of his stepmother. He was also not fed properly, and the coroner, Joni Shields, can talk specifically about the condition of his body, but the initial thoughts are that the child starved to death, but she can explain more of that. Right now in the Monroe County Correctional Center, we have the father, who is Luis Eduardo Paso Jr., about 32 years of age. He is being held on $500,000 bond. They will have an initial hearing sometime in the near future. The stepmother, Diana Sadahid Medina Flores, is also in jail on same charges, level 1 felony neglect, multiple counts, also on a $500,000 bond. They are placed in segregated housing. We talked with them about safety concerns. They felt that they were safe from any concerns of other inmates, but they are in high security lockdown blocks with limited access to other inmates. This afternoon, family members from the biological mother of Eduardo came to Bloomington and met with us for interviews about history and background questions. There were some CPS involvement in the state of Florida, and we can't disclose any more details about that. But at this time, for any particular questions you have about this situation, I'm going to turn this over to Detective Lieutenant Jennifer Allen, who can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Allen. I'm Detective Lieutenant from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. As Sheriff Swain said, on the early morning hours of Friday, May 24th, we were called to investigate the death of Eduardo Paso, who was 12 years old. Investigators with our division began an investigation, and as Sheriff Swain stated, upon doing a search of the hotel room they were staying in, we located restraint systems, leg cuffs, shackles that we believe had been used on Eduardo. Also located inside the hotel room was a web-based security system which we later found a application for that security system on one of the cellular devices belonging to the parents. I can tell you that the family was booked into jail upon later examination of the cellular phone, so we did not get to question them about that. However, we did later find that there were numerous photographs of Eduardo in restraints in the bathtub with the dog shock collar around his neck, as well as a video of him being restrained that way. At this point, do you guys have any questions regarding our investigation? Yes.
The location of the motel.
Yes, the motel is the Economy Inn, which is located at 4805 Southwood State Road 37 in Bloomington.
Do you know how long the family had been in Bloomington?
Yes, they had arrived on Monday.
How long would they have been here for to do that publicity?
They would have just been, they arrived on Monday prior to us being called on Friday, which would have been the 20th, I believe, so not even a week. So it's our belief that they were actually in Kokomo the week prior to being in Monroe County.
Was DCS here in Indiana ever involved in this case?
Not until the call we got on Friday afternoon, or Friday morning.
Can you repeat that address one more time?
Yes, it is, let me locate it again, 4805 Southwood State Road 37.
Is there any indication on how long this abuse had been going on for Eduardo's life?
Yeah, we believe probably within the last year, things seem to have gotten more severe. We do have some photographs and some videos on some of the devices that show that he appeared to be somewhat of a normal, happy little boy approximately a year ago.
Can you speak to whether these videos, these pictures, this activity is part of like a larger network of...
That's still under investigation at this point.
Can you talk about what the father or stepmother said when presented with this evidence, presented with their child?
Yeah. The father stated that, both the father and stepmother denied any type of withholding food from the child. The father did admit to some sorts of a physical abuse on the child, and the mother, or the stepmother, is the one that actually told us that the father physically abuses the child as well as uses the restraints on him. The father never did admit to using the restraints on the child.
Did she say mom?
I was given the explanation that he was the child that acted up the most. He was the one that they always had issues with. The other children behaved just better than he did.
What does this do for you personally, not just as a detective, but as a human seeing this?
You can't even put that into words. There are no words for it. Everybody involved with this case has been very deeply affected and will be affected until the end of our career, let alone the end of our lives. I mean, there's really no words for this type of abuse and how it affects all of us that's involved with it. So,
What goes through your head when you start realizing the details of this case and investigating this?
disbelief, horror, shock. It's just hard, can't even put it into words.
And now, I know you said there had been some involvement in Florida, with
Yes.
CPS in
Mhm.
Florida. Is that where the entire family is originally from?
I believe so. Yeah, there is some family that lives in Missouri. I think the family originated from Florida. They do have large amount of family that's down there now that have flown up here or driven up here to take care of some business.
Is there any, do they travel anywhere else besides Indiana and Florida? Are there any other cases involving them with CPS or DCS?
We're not aware of any cases involving them with DCS. We are currently, as part of our investigation, trying to see where all they were at in Indiana or even other states to see if there may possibly be additional charges, whether it be with state police or other agencies within local jurisdictions or even the FBI at this point to see how big their crime actually was.
But right now, the only case, CPS case you know of is in Florida.
Correct.
Can you say whether that was with the father or biological mother?
There's reports on both.
Did the father have custody of the child, or where's the mother's involvement? In
At this
the
time,
child?
yes. Yes.
So he had legal custody of the boy?
Yes.
What's next for those arrested?
They have an initial hearing that will be set for Friday at 1:30 p.m., and that's just their initial, and then they'll follow normal court process from there.
Was the child in school?
Was he in school? No, he was not. None of the children were in school. I believe they had pulled him out of school when they went to do their road business of distributing the advertisements and stuff.
How long has this road business been going on for?
It's my indication it's just been over the past year or so that they've started doing this. I know some of the family were in shock and disbelief and thought the family was actually still in Florida and the kids were in school. They had no idea the kids had been pulled from school.
I know you were called to the hospital. Who brought him to the hospital? How
The,
did,
they did, yeah. The father actually is the one that drove him to the hospital himself.
but he was already,
Correct. He was already deceased.
Did the father say what had happened, or have some explanation of
Yeah.
these injuries that resulted, or this condition that resulted in his death?
He did have, they did state that he seemed to decline more rapidly over the last 24 hours. I was given the story that they went out to pass out their advertisements the previous day. However, as the day continued, he seemed like he was more and more sick. At some point, even became unresponsive. Stepmom stated, I think we need to go back to the hotel room. Now, at that point, they did. They went back to the room, and he continued to decline from there. And then around the early morning hours prior to them bringing him into the hospital is when they realized he wasn't breathing and then rushed him into the hospital.
so they brought the kids while passing out flyers? with him?
Yes, yes. The way I understood it was a family business and that the kids and everybody all helped with what they did.
Where were they passing these out?
I'm not sure. I know that previous days they had been in Bedford as well as Nashville. They went through local surrounding towns and just passed out flyers and tried to sell some tickets. So
And they've been in Bedford and Nashville here within the past week,
that's what I understand. Yes.
and then Kokomo potentially previously.
Yes.
I think one thing people hear when they're hearing this has been going on for a year. How does something like this go on for a year without getting notice?
It's my understanding from talking to some of the family that they didn't get to see the children. They didn't bring them around. They often hid the children from them. It's our belief that they left Eduardo in the hotel room by himself sometimes when they actually went out and passed out the advertisements. So I don't think they...
That's like the surveillance system.
Yes,
watching him
exactly.
on.
Yeah, so I don't think they brought him into the public eye very often.
Were they employed by anybody, or was this a self-business?
They were contracted out by somebody to do advertisements for the circus. I'm not sure the company they worked for, but
Where does your guys' investigation go from here now?
right now we're currently focused on getting our cellular devices examined, forensically examined. That may take several weeks at this point, depending on if we decide to send to the state police lab for examination. Trying to determine where all the crimes actually occurred at and who all we need to loop into the investigation, whether it be state police, other states, FBI, stuff like that. So,
What specific charges and how much are they facing right now just with this initial?
right. Currently, so Luis is booked in the jail on 3 counts of level 1 neglect, 1 count of level 3 domestic battery, and 1 count of level 3 confinement. Diana was booked in on 3 counts of level 1 neglect and 1 count level 3 confinement. At this point, as our investigation continues, there is a possibility that there will be more charges added or a possible upcharge of murder. We're just not sure at this point. We're still waiting on results back from our forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy as far as the cause and manner of death, and that will also tell us more once we have that information.
When people watch this tonight and they hear this, what's your message to the community tonight?
If you see something out of place, something that doesn't look right with the child, if you think they're in danger, if you think they need help, please call and tell someone. You may be the one that saves that child's life and not even realize it. So,
Did they ever have cleaning crews go through this motel? Did anyone at the motel notice there was an issue?
we did interview one of the housekeepers here in Monroe County that cleaned the Economy Inn. She never saw Eduardo in the hotel room. However, she did see at one point the web camera that was attached to the towel bar in the bathroom. And she did think that was somewhat odd, but, just passed it off as being nothing at that point. And I can't speak as far as the other jurisdictions they were in and stuff like that, so I'm not sure. We're still in the process of finding out where all they're at. Possibly getting credit card receipts to find out what hotels they stayed at, and that may coincide with some of the dates that we have timestamps for on the cell phones, or possibly that we're able to retrieve later. So,
When you guys talk about starvation, can you
Mhm.
elaborate more on what you all found in that regard?
he was severely malnourished. I do believe that our forensic pathologist stated he had 0% body fat. So,
Would he have appeared skeletal?
Absolutely.
It would have been clearly evident to anyone who saw him
yes,
that he was starving.
yes.
So he was not really brought out to hand out.
That's my belief. Yes, that's my belief. The parents did say that they took him with him or with them at certain points. I do believe that they, however, once again, didn't put him in the public eye and that he was left inside the van.
All those other children right now,
Yes.
they're with DCS?
Yes, they are in the custody of Department of Child Services, currently in foster care. Any other questions?
Are you going to talk as well?
I can answer some questions.
Yeah.
I'm Joni Shields, Monroe County Coroner. I can answer any questions to the best of my ability at this point. There is some things that obviously we don't know yet, and that would be cause and manner. That is pending further investigation at this time.
Can you talk about the condition of,
He was severely emaciated, weighing approximately 50 to 55 pounds. There was definitely signs of severe starvation and abuse as well. Soft tissue abuse. There was no internal injuries found, no broken bones. It was all bruises
that were evident on what parts of his body?
all over,
Over.
all over.
How long, from what you can tell, in your expert opinion, how long would he have been starved for to get to that point?
I don't have an expert opinion on that. That would be more for the pathologist. It's been a long time. It's not been overnight. It's not been a month. It's been a long time that he's been without food, nourishment, I should say.
How long do you anticipate or think that he had been dead for by the time you were able to?
He had died relatively close to when he was taken to the hospital. It wasn't, days or anything like that. Any more questions?
I'm sure this is difficult for you too.
Extremely. I'm a mom. This doesn't happen, and it did, so. Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't asked you guys that you want people to know this evening?
As soon as I can release cause and manner, I will. Like I said, it's pending further testing, further investigation. What we know now is what I've said, the severe starvation and the soft tissue injuries that he had.
Could you tell if the injuries were from being punched or falls, or is there any way to know?
There was no certain pattern to the injury, so it could have been any of them. There wasn't any open hand bruising. There was just bruising, a lot of bruising.
This child would have suffered greatly. Am I right?
Absolutely.
And for the sheriff, here in Monroe County, have you guys ever seen a case like this?
Before I became sheriff, I worked for 20 years pretty much exclusively with child abuse cases, and I've worked some pretty horrendous ones, but this certainly is, it is beyond anything that I worked. I've worked child homicides and other cases that really will play on your emotions. However, this one, with the enduring abuse and just, you don't even want to let your mind go to imagine what this child's thoughts were and what his prospects for his future were. Those are the kind of things that will play on the minds of the investigators and all the professionals involved. I was told that the emergency room doctor had a pretty emotional experience as a result of having to do this examination and just seeing firsthand the results of the cruelty that some people can place on another one, especially a child that's defenseless. And you can just imagine turning a fan off and his life just slowly stopped. You know, it just came to a slow, painful, merciful halt at one point. I cannot think of, in 30 years, a case like this. Most of the time, the abuse that results in death is a result of a very violent act in which a child has died. But I can think of another case where an invalid child was just not taken care of properly by a parent who would not seek help for the child or get professional help for that child. But this, where it was an intentional, deliberate act on Eduardo for reasons that we'll still try to determine, while the other children seem to be in fairly good shape. And I can also imagine the thought process as these children become adults and realize the horror that they lived in, where a sibling is placed in shackles and not fed as well as them, that this was just a normal life for them, and to make the adjustments of what's a normal life and what isn't, that I'm sure this will be with these children the rest of their lives as well. I think we'll conclude the press conference now. The probable cause affidavit, we have a 72-hour investigatory continuance on filing that, so it'll be a couple of more days likely before you all will have access to it when it's filed as a matter of public record. If there's anything else that you may need or questions, reach out to myself or Captain Davis, and we'll try and make some other documents if they exist, or you have a question, we'll make that available. I didn't want to be doing that prior to the press conference, as we've been very busy. And I thank you all for coming and your attention. Thanks. And if any of you came a little bit later, there are photographs if you want.